Yo, hello everybody. Let's see if I got this going on. I am producing tonight, so bear with me. How's everyone doing? See, we have some people joining. What's up? How's it going? So awesome, awesome. All right, cool. We're live. All right. Hey, how's it going? So anyway, welcome. It's our October user group meeting. Thanks people for coming out. First of all, apologies for last month. For those of you not aware, Louisiana had a bit of a storm and it kind of put a lot of stuff in disarray for us. So we had people out and people having unexpected visitors. I made the trip up to Tennessee just to get away. So everything just got thrown into flux. So we decided just to go ahead and cancel the meeting. Um, anyway, for those of you who don't know or new to the stream, my name is Brian McCoy. I am the leader of the Baton Rouge.net user group. With me tonight, I will have our friend Jeremy Knight from the Home of Thibodeau area. I will bring him on later to just kind of chat with y'all to see if we can get some participation out there and talk about other dev related topics in our industry. And then we have a special guest who I now know how to pronounce her name, Miss Lucia from Microsoft, the Teals organization, to come and speak with us. So yeah, I hope the people joining tonight have brought some questions, something that Jeremy and I can answer or talk about, or just stall for time. This is going to be slightly different than how we normally do it. Typically, what we would do is have a presenter come on and just kind of give like a lecture type thing with some interaction. So tonight it's going to be a little bit more like a podcast type scenario where we do a little bit more interaction to just give everyone out there a chance to get to know us. Things like this were a lot easier whenever we were in person. So now it's just kind of like, I don't know. I don't know if we've had some new people come in. Our audience we lost half of our members, but we've gained another half from various places around, the Louisiana area, not just Baton Rouge. Anyway, if you ever want to get to know us more or get in touch with us, we have Discord links, we have Twitter links. Feel free to reach out and talk to us. We are here all the time, hanging out, providing whatever information we can. Jeremy is blowing up the Twitch commands, which he has so kindly set up for us, so that it makes it easier for you all to find our information. As always, if you are interested in speaking or being involved in any user groups or our user group, feel free to reach out. Any one of those places, we'll be happy to kind of set you up with that and get you involved. We have plenty of stuff that you can do, or we have plenty of topics that we would like to hear you talk about. As always, follow us on Twitter or Facebook, and also YouTube. We do export all of our talks to YouTube. Some of them actually doing way better than I expected, and some of them are doing about what we would expect. But we'll talk about that tonight because this actually makes a year, or this month will be one year since we actually started doing the streams. I believe our first stream was actually to YouTube, and we did a lightning round talk where we had a bunch of the local people come on and speak about technology, and then we did like a little round table at the end of it. It was a lot of fun. You can actually check it out. It's on the YouTube channel. Let's see, what else do we have? Typically, this is where I would plug the Teals organization, but I have somebody with us who is going to do a much, much better job at that than I would. So, Miss Lucia, if you're ready, I will go ahead and add you to the stream. Let's see if I do this right. Okay.
I think you did it. Hi, Brian. Thank you so much for having me on tonight.
And also, I did represent. I am a Teals volunteer. So we actually have quite a few Teals volunteers from the Baton Rouge user group, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So anyway, I have your slides. Let me go ahead and bring them up if you want to go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I am here tonight to talk about the Microsoft Philanthropies Teals program. It's quite a mouthful, especially when you pull the Teals acronym all the way out. It stands for Technology, Education, and Literacy in Schools. So the purpose of the Teals program is really to make sure that every single high school that wants to be able to offer computer science is able to offer computer science to their students. And the way that we do this is we pair volunteers from the tech industry, like Brian, who's been an amazing volunteer for our first year here in Louisiana, with high school teachers, and then they teach that class with those teachers. So it's great because the students get this really special experience where, first of all, their school is able to offer CS because usually there's not, teachers that have that background and are able to do it by themselves. Second of all, not only are they learning CS, but they're learning it from people who are really in the field and can bring it to life, bring in real world examples, and also just, be that kind of pathway and that conduit into a field where they may not know anybody that's in the tech field. So that's what we do. Our mission, big picture, is to help high schools build sustainable and equitable computer science programs. So I guess if we can go to the next slide, Brian, that would be great. So what I wanted to do tonight is just give you a little update on where we landed. So the Teals program actually began the launch last September and kind of began the process of finding the schools that were interested in our program and then finding the volunteers that would be able to support the schools. So where we landed is we ended up with 6 schools that were selected as partner schools for our first year in the region, which is now this academic school year. Those 6 schools are offering 12 different classes to students. So some of the schools are offering year-long computer science classes, like Tower High School, which is where Brian's volunteering. And then some of the schools are offering the CS class as a spring semester class or a fall semester class. I got that reversed. And one thing that I'm super excited about is that every single school is offering at least one advanced placement AP computer science class, which is great because the stats for Louisiana as a whole are pretty low in comparison to other states. So it's really exciting to see that, not only are more schools now offering computer science, but more schools are able to offer those advanced placement courses for their students, which, just a fun fact, kids that take AP in high school are significantly more likely to consider computer science in college because they have that initial exposure. So I'm estimating that there's about 240 students that are being impacted throughout the state, and that's assuming there's about 20 students per class. Some classes are a little bigger, some classes are a little smaller, so that's kind of just where we're landing on for the number of kids that are getting CS with Teals volunteers this year. There are volunteers from 20 different organizations across the state, so lots of organizations are represented in terms of, what volunteers are able to come in and talk to the students about with their day-to-day jobs. And then there are 28 individuals who have actually signed on for this very intense, and Brian's going to tell you more about it, but very intense volunteer opportunity where you really are in the school on a weekly basis with those students. You're teaching, you're being a mentor, you're building relationships with the kids, and then of course with the teacher. And the ultimate goal is to make sure that the teachers are comfortable enough to teach these classes in the future without volunteers. So that's pretty much it in terms of the updates. We're really excited about where we started for our first year in the region. We're even more excited to grow and to be able to support more schools for next year. So definitely, if you know of high schools that don't have CS that you think should, shoot me an email, give the high schools my contact information or our Teals website. But at this point, I'd really love to, just get rid of the slides, Brian, and bring you back on so I can kind of ask you some questions about your experience and how it's been so far.
No, for sure. Hold on, let's see. We got your contact info on here, right? And then I think if this thing's fancy enough, oh, nope, I lost you. All right, so we'll bring you back. We'll just do this. All right, so here we go.
Yeah, I'll drop that in the chat later, but yes. Yeah. And I see somebody else already dropped our website, which is Microsoft.com/Teals. So thank you, Jeremy, for dropping that in there.
I will definitely start with, I believe you used the word intense to describe it. And I will be honest with you. I've done a lot of volunteer stuff around the Baton Rouge area. I work at Blue Cross Blue Shield, Louisiana. They encourage you to volunteer in the community. My wife's a dog lover. We've done that. I've obviously done tech stuff. Whenever you sent me the email to do my interview for the Teals organization, I was like, oh, yeah, we're friends. We've been helping her out. I sat down and actually had a legitimate interview, and I was a tad bit nervous. And I messaged a few other people who were lined up their interviews and say, just so you know, this is for real. And then we go through the training. I wish I would have paid more attention because you really do get dropped in the class, and and not just you're not flailing by any means. You have a teacher there, and I'm fortunate enough to have a teacher there that has 20 plus years of experience who can guide me in different ways to she'll point out, say, hey, you need to interact with this person, or try phrasing it this way, or what is that you're talking about? So you're not on your own, but it is a little bit more than you might expect at first, but it's so much fun.
So tell us a little bit more, Brian, in the first place, what made you be yes, teaching in a classroom? What made you decide that you wanted to try this experience?
So I don't know. I enjoy public speaking. That's why I don't necessarily enjoy running the .NET user group, but I started doing this because I wanted a place to actually get up in front of people and talk about tech and do teaching and stuff like that. Throughout my career, as a senior developer and a lead developer and an architect, whatever, you're going to mentor junior developers. You're going to be hands-on with a lot of them, sometimes more so than you would want. And like the better leaders in the organization can teach, kind of a thing. So whenever this came up, it's like, hey, we're going to hit a couple of different things. You're going to give me an opportunity to get in front of people and talk on a regular basis. You're going to give me an opportunity to actually be a mentor to somebody who may go on and work at a great company and do great things. And then, you're also going to give me an opportunity to give back to the community, because that's why we do what we do with the user groups. If any of you know William Asif and some of the things that he would promote and what SQL Saturday would actually do as far as bringing in different organizations and trying to help STEM, that's always been a big part of what just the Baton Rouge user groups have been involved in. It just so happens that I have Teals now to help use this community to promote. William had a different STEM program that he used to get companies involved in tech in Baton Rouge.
And I think one thing I didn't mention is, of those 28 volunteers, I think are there 4 or 5 people from the .NET user group? There's a good amount of Teals volunteers that came straight out of this group, which is incredible. And we're just so thankful to this group.
Out of the ones that I know, I will straight call them out, but it is me and Jeremy Cronin, who is typically my producer. We teach with Miss McCoy at Terra High School. Al I can't think of his name, but he's new. I just saw the email come through. Yeah. He has been in the Baton Rouge user group area for, ever. Mike Huguet also has been there forever. I think the other Brian that they're volunteering with heard about it through the .NET user group. Andy, who would normally help out, was a volunteer, but things happen. And then let's see, Jared Crosby, he's a volunteer. So yeah, no, we managed to place quite a few just from our user group. We have over half of Terra High's teachers come directly from the Baton Rouge user group.
Yeah, y'all are definitely representing, which is incredible, because I don't know what would have happened if Terra High School if it wasn't for y'all. So thank you for helping to spread the word. They probably would have ended up with remote volunteers from another state, which would have been such a shame. I think, to me, one of the coolest things is that not only these kids getting to know people that are in the field, but it's these are people in the field, in the community you live in, who have tech jobs here. This could literally be you. And I think that's one of the most special things in my mind about Teals, is kids just seeing the pathway ahead of them. So on that note, I'd love to know about the kids. What's it been like working with kids and building relationships with them?
It is a very humbling experience. So one of the things that I had to learn real quick was, in a professional environment, you can sometimes address people certain ways or expect more of them than what you would, typically expect of a high school student. So going into the class, you really have to explain things a tad bit more. It's we're talking about right now, let's see, the first unit was kind of hey, this is what we're going to cover. Then we start talking about networking. It's okay, well, how do you explain packet loss to a high school student who didn't even know packets existed, or how the internet transferred data from one computer to another, and sitting down and trying to explain those to them really helps you understand, okay, our teachers use this is how you need to explain tech to a person, or this is how, just really kind of forming those skills. But they're picking it up, and they're really they're going with it. They are students. Some of them actually have an interest in STEM or some tech related field, and you can tell which ones really want to do this and which ones are, they're in there, they're good students. It's an AP computer science class. So it's just really neat to kind of listen to them talk and see the ideas that they have, and just kind of help guide them and expound on those ideas, and to see where it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know when I was in there observing, because I get to, as the regional manager, for those of you on the call, I get to go and I get to visit all the classes once or twice a semester, depending on the level of support the teacher is getting. And for me, that's my favorite part of the job, right? Is to see you all in classrooms interacting with students. It just makes this job fun and worth it to know that kids are really being impacted and teachers are really being impacted through the support of like folks like Brian, who are just like donating an incredible amount of time to their classrooms. So I know like watching you in the classroom, like you kind of just like you dove right in there. You know, you were getting around there, you were talking to like every single student, seeing how they were doing with what they were working on, and the kids were super comfortable with you. And I know that that's not something that just like that doesn't just come, you know, like you're a stranger to them. So how did you do that? How did you get them to that point?
That's very interesting because so one of the first lessons I had to teach was binary numbers and trying to explain, you know, this is a binary number and this is its decimal representation. Then you start to think, it's like, I don't even know if they've covered anything about decimal numbers versus binary numbers versus hexadecimal numbers or anything like that inside of high school. Well, at the end of the day, that lesson completely bombed. So I did not cover it well. So I kind of worked hard and started really figuring out like, how do you get with the students? Like, it's almost like you're a salesman. It's, hey, are you interested in buying that? No, I'm not interested. It's like, I know you're interested because you're looking at it. So let me explain it to you or something like that. So you just kind of have to get in there and kind of like, I know you have a question. I'm here to answer it for you or help you out. Let me do it. And sometimes the kids are super receptive. And for the most part, I think they're always super receptive, but they're high school students and class starts at 7:00 in the morning. So they're tired and stuff like that. So I actually pulled Miss McCoy, the teacher that I teach with, aside one day. I was like, are they getting it? Like, am I helping? Am I adding any value to the class? And she was like, oh no, they excited about y'all coming in. They're excited about what y'all are doing. You know, one of the kids who's really, really, really interested in computers pulled me to the side and said, hey, I have a Razer keyboard at home. How does, when I push the letter S, does it show up on my screen? And it's like, I want to know how all this works. Like, how does it work? And giving them the opportunity to where I can sit down and apply what we're teaching in the class to the things that they want to actually do, to do like with the computer is really nice. Other things are, you know, one thing that the Teals teaching or the Teals training teaches you is that, you know, relate to the students. So there were some girls that were trying to figure out an app idea. It was one of the first lessons that we had. And it's like, okay, well, what are y'all interested in? How do we get to you? And it's like, I noticed that they both had cool, flashy shoes. I was like, do y'all ever try to get into shoe raffles or anything like that? Wouldn't it be cool if you had an app that would actually show you when a raffle's about to go off or submit your ticket for you or things like that? So really trying to figure out, what are you interested in? How do we relate to you? Kind of helps open them up. And then they start talking, oh yeah, that's a great idea. We could do that, or we could do this or something like that. So that it's just paying attention and really trying to figure out how to relate to the students is what's the most important part.
Yeah, teaching is like a crazy puzzle, right? Because there's like the content the kids need to learn, and there's like the personalities, there's what the students like, there's like how to structure the lesson, how to make sure they're getting enough time working versus you explaining. So it's definitely, it takes like all of your brain to make that all come together. But I will say, like, one other thing that really stood out to me when I came to see the lesson that you were teaching with Miss McCoy was, like, first of all, the balance between y'all. So like Miss McCoy, you know, she's a confident teacher. She makes learning really fun. She's taught the AP course one time by herself before, but is like pretty uncomfortable with like the tech pieces, but very comfortable with the social pieces, you know? So she was like going off, making all these cultural connections to them, to all kinds of pieces of media. And then you really like wound it back in and you were like, okay, we are in here today because it's a computer science class. Like, let me throw in some examples about copyright and like programs, you know, not just like song lyrics. So that was really exciting just to see, you know, that you were able to kind of keep the class also on track and get the kids thinking, you know, specifically about tech, not just about the fun parts of that class.
No, definitely. Getting to know the teacher and, you know, figuring out how can I be of assistance to you is really important part, in my opinion. This is one of the things that I try to remind myself going into this is like, this is their livelihood. This is their classroom. This is what they've been doing for years. I'm not trying to step on your toes. I'm trying to help you out. So how can we make this relationship work, essentially? But so far, I mean, it's been fantastic. I mean, I've really enjoyed it. You know, there's some days where it's a little bit difficult because the kids, like, you know, just came back from a break. They're tired. You know, they play sports. They do all this other stuff, and it's like, hey, you know, let's get active. Let's get involved. And there are other days where, like, just happened to be the day you came where they're just like, yeah, let's go, firing on cylinders. They're engaged. They're excited. So it's fun. I really enjoy it. So.
All right. Well, I don't know how long we have, Brian. I could keep asking you questions if I can. But one thing I will say is just, right now we're not looking really for more volunteers. Like we're pretty much set with the volunteers we have in the state right now, which is amazing. But for folks that are maybe interested in getting involved in the spring is when we start looking for volunteers for the next school year. Because there is that process of like making sure we get you in the right school with the right class and then you being able to go through the summer training. So you're ready to kick it off.
Yeah.
Do you have any final words or things that you feel like people should know, Brian?
I mean, no, it's worth it. It's a lot of fun. It's going to make you a better teacher because you're going to have to learn how to teach, and there's no better way of learning than just by doing it. And then you have a support system. I mean, I have a wonderful regional manager who gives me advice after she comes and watches me. She doesn't fire me, which is good, but no, just joking. And then also you have a teacher that you're teaching with, and one thing that I'm actually curious about that I had a question about is how does year to year work? Do Teals teachers typically stay in the same classroom, same school, or?
Yeah, that's a great question that I will definitely answer. So the way that the program works, the idea, the goal is that a school will have a sustainable computer science program. And to us, what that means, it means that they've got teachers at that school that can teach the class by themselves. Like that's what we're working towards. So with any teacher that comes into our system, we either put them on what we call lab support, which is the model that you're in, where the teacher is leading a lot of the instruction, but you're like there, you're bringing in examples, you're supporting, you're sometimes leading lessons, especially about things that the teacher might be uncomfortable with, like the binary numbers. Like I know Miss McCoy, like her thing was like, look, I've taught the class one time, we did okay, but like I'm not really comfortable with programming, and I'm worried about that for my students because like this is something I'm learning on the fly. So she was really grateful to have that, that technical expertise in her classroom. So those teachers are typically with us for 2 years. And what that looks like for the volunteers that are with them is like if you are a Teals volunteer, you love working with your teacher, you want to be with your teacher again the next year, that's typically what we're going to do. We're going to put you with the same volunteer, or excuse me, with the same teacher. If you go through the year and like you're an APCSP, but like say Brian, like you actually love Java and you really want to teach a Java class and you want to volunteer again and you're like, please put me in a Java class, then of course as a returning volunteer, I'm going to try to make sure that I give you your preference. Like if there's a Java class available, I'm gonna try to put you there. That's kind of how that goes, and it's a conversation with us. With like, here's what we've got. Like, what do you want?
Awesome.
The other teacher model is the co-teach model. So the other teacher that's at the same school as you, she's in co-teach, and that's a little bit more of an intense model where you get more volunteers assigned to you, and they're really teaching the class, and you're learning it. So the other teacher at that school, she's doing Python, and the class is basically entirely Python. APCSP kind of has some other things like sprinkled in. The intro to CS class that they're doing is just like a Python coding class. So her volunteers are really teaching that course, and she's kind of learning alongside the students this year, and they'll gradually hand off responsibility to her next year. We'll kind of move from there. So
nice. Awesome. Yeah. We have a comment in the chat. Somebody's trying to make fun of me. So no, I'm going to hear about this tomorrow at work. Anyway. Yeah, that's awesome. No, that's great. Yeah. Brian loves Java. So thank you, Jared. I appreciate that.
We'll put that on a sticker. You can wear that for the kids.
But it's been great. I really look forward to it. I look forward to continuing. I think, there were some growing pains for me and some of the other teachers because, this is the first time we're doing this and we really didn't know what to expect and what to do. But once you get in there, the first week, we kind of all just dove in there together, kind of figured it out. I mean, we almost got to the point where we don't even need like our weekly cadence meeting anymore. We're constantly chatting. We set up Slack channels. So, after there's a concept of a handoff because you don't teach every day. So with us, like everybody, we just post it to the general chat. The teacher's in there. I'm in there. The other 2 volunteers are in there. Everybody knows what's going on. We give guidance for the next class. Like, hey, this is what we covered. This is what you need to prep for. This is your expectation. Like it's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it. So yeah, if anybody out there is interested, I would highly recommend giving it a shot. Just see what happens. So, but yeah, no.
Thank you so much, Brian.
No problem. We'll have you back again in the spring, and we'll start trying to recruit. I'd be really interested to see if we get any more Baton Rouge schools or anything like that. So
yeah, for sure. I'll definitely be reaching out. So if y'all know schools, like let me know, let them know, and we'll try to make sure that they know that this is available to them. So
awesome. Sounds good. All right. Well, we appreciate you joining, and I'm sure I'll see you around at some point.
Yes, you will. All right. Bye. I'll have a good night.
Bye. All right, remove Lucia and bring up Jeremy. Yay. All right. So now, first of all, thanks, Lucia, for joining us. That was a lot of fun. We're trying to give Teals some love because it is a fun organization to be involved with and to help try to make a difference. But now we'll get to more tech related stuff because we are a .NET user group. We will not be talking about Java, at least not. Yeah, I hope not. Anyway, Jeremy might. So what's going on, Jeremy?
No, Jeremy will definitely not be talking about Java.
Dude, if you hear, I think my wife invited people over tonight, so if you hear dogs barking and people screaming, it's really okay. So don't worry about me.
I don't think I've touched Java since college.
See, Jared posted that comment because he's trying to turn Blue Cross into a Java shop because he's old. So
Jared literally graduated high school from me. You can't say he's old.
I'm the same age. I just like to give him a hard time. But yeah, no. So I mean, I don't know. We could talk about some topics tonight. We could talk about the user group. If anybody in the chat has a question, I know Jeremy and I have been kicking around some ideas what to talk to. We were going to have more people on, but things happen. You know, things happen. You know, this is a volunteer group, and people's lives come first. So, you know, it is what it is. We make shifts. So, real quick again, like I said earlier, this is a year. I think, Jeremy, you were not with us for the first stream, though, right? I don't remember. It was the October stream. We had like a Halloween thing. Bedford was our producer. William had not yet left to go to Microsoft. Ryan Richard was the speaker. He may be out there. So was some of the other people from the user group. Like I said, go reminisce at our wonderful setup that we had on YouTube. But
I think I had helped set up some OBS stuff or answer some questions or something, but that's about it at that point.
Yeah, no, I mean, shortly after that, for any of you who don't know, the story is always fun to tell because whenever COVID kind of kicked off, well, first of all, whenever I first became the leader of a user group, I reached out to Jeremy and some other user group leaders because I didn't know what the world I was doing. And I had just inherited this group. And at the time we had like 6 people showing up to a meeting. And I was like, all right, so I need to figure out how to either save this or just put this to bed. So I reached out to Jeremy. He gave me a lot of really good information that I really appreciated. The user group started doing really well in Baton Rouge, and then COVID hit. And shortly after that, everything started going virtual. And Jeremy reached out to me and said, do you want to do a .NET stream with me? And that was like in January or February. And I said, there's absolutely no way I'm doing that. I have no interest whatsoever. I am good. So a little while later, the Baton Rouge user group guys, a guy named Bedford kind of came on and started helping out. He's like, hey, let's stream. And then, you know, William's like, yeah, let's stream. And then Kenny's like, I don't know what Kenny's a DBA. He doesn't know what streaming is. So we started a stream. And if you go back and watch and pay attention, you can tell I am the most aggravated person in the world. I don't want to be there. I didn't want to do this. You're making me do it, but I have no choice because we were going to end up losing the rest of the user group. And then everybody bailed shortly after the first stream. So I reached out to Jeremy and said, hey, you want to stream? And here we are. So, yeah. Other than that, how do you like the stream so far, Jeremy?
Pretty good. We're talking about just today or like overall? Like, I've actually like really, really loved the fact that you've been able to grab some amazing speakers because we don't have to get them down here.
That is fun. And the best part, which unfortunately most of the people here don't get to experience unless you become a leader of the group, is they'll hang out for 30 minutes to an hour after the stream and just chat with us and answer questions. I mean, that's been a lot of fun. I mean, yeah. I mean, the reference to Steve Smith's talk, that is actually on our YouTube channel, has close to...
It was 1.5 or no, 1. No, look at the wrong one. 3.5 is his. The Maui talk was 1.2, but let's not discuss Maui right now.
3.5 is his, and it's fantastic. And he, I mean, at the end of that chat, I just asked him, said, do you do this often? He said about twice a month he goes to a user group and speaks virtually. So I told him, don't tell me that because I will invite you back every month until you tell me to leave you the hell alone. But yeah, the Maui talk. I mean, the Maui talk was great. We actually got the PM from Maui to come on. She didn't tell us they were pushing their date back, but she came on.
That's why it's a sore subject for me. But yeah, it's still great. Like that talk was actually really good. It was very informative. It answered a bunch of questions for us. And then, like you said, after being able to ask her the direct questions that, just kind of in a casual environment was really nice.
I mean, every one of them. I mean, it's been, hang out. I mean, Maddie probably hung out the longest because we had a lot of questions about Maui for ourselves. And we didn't really ask him on stream. I wasn't sure if we probably should have, but we didn't ask him on stream because I don't know what she's willing to answer. And then some of the stuff that I know I talked about were things specifically business related to Blue Cross that I wouldn't want to put on the streams. I'd probably get in trouble.
Yeah. And but to be fair to her, she stayed on longest probably because she spoke half as long as the other two.
Well, I think Carl Franklin, he got the quickest, but yeah.
Oh yeah.
And he was fun because he, right after the talk, I mean, he pulls up, I don't know if I could say it, whatever. He pulled up a glass of wine and he's just like,
he was drinking that during the stream.
Oh, he was taking the stream. Yeah, I can say it then. Yeah, he just hung out and chatted with us. And I was just sitting there because he was the first one that we got. And he was just like, the stream's over. And I was like, all right, thanks. And he's just like, yeah, so what's up? What are y'all doing? Cool if I hang out for a minute? And I was just like, yeah, what do you want to talk about? So, but yeah, no, that's been a lot of fun. I think, like you said, we had some really great guests. And it's been, really enjoyable. We're going to continue to try to bring these guests back. So if you're interested in them, or if you're interested in anybody, it's not rocket science on how I'm getting these guests. I've straight up cold call every one of them. I mean, I scour the internet for some sort of contact information, whether it's Twitter, their work email address,
Twitch,
yeah, Discord. We've used every single one of those to try to get these speakers. So if there was somebody that Jared's getting a lot of love tonight. She just came on stream. That he sent me that used Facebook, and I don't use Facebook, so I couldn't reach out to that person. But anyway, yeah, no, that's great. So I think things are going pretty well. It's obvious to see which talks we have been the most enjoyed. So we'll try to continue to get those speakers. Like I said, any topics. I have some people in mind. One of them is an Ionic dev. Ionic? Yeah. Or Cordova or whatever that stuff is. So we may try to get that. But
like, which Ionic dev? Because I know a lot of them.
Yeah. Well, it's basically, like I said, I scour the internet for people who do speaking. We do have a speaker next month, by the way. She's going to come in and talk about microservices and I think Dapper, if you're familiar with that technology. So it's an interesting technology that's coming out. If anybody is actually legitimately trying to move to a microservice architecture, they're tooling around doing that. It's DAPR. It's not the ORM.
I was like about to come out. I was like, hold on a second.
No, so Dapper is it's a container. It's kind of like a Docker Compose. No, not the micro ORM. It's like a Docker Compose, which will actually compose your container environment for you for local development that Microsoft's putting together. Because what ends up happening whenever you're developing microservices is that, wait, not that Dapper, but that no.
Yeah, I was just clarifying. That's
yeah. So
the right one.
But yeah, no, it's to orchestrate your containers to run for local development. If you're actually trying to do that locally. So I used to do it because, your microservice is supposed to be self-contained and Omni, whatever, where essentially nobody shares a database. Your container can go down or your service can go down. It's fine because you have a message bus that actually relays messages between all your microservices, blah, blah, blah. Well, in order to set that development environment up locally, you have to run all those containers. You have to run whatever message bus you have, whether it's Azure Service Bus or RabbitMQ or whatever. If it's Azure Service Bus, you're kind of in an interesting predicament as far as local development. But if you're running something like RabbitMQ, you can actually run in the container locally. So now you have all these containers locally. But what ends up happening is whenever you do a Docker compose, typically you can only build one Docker image. So you can only develop one API per Docker compose file. But what Dapper is actually going to let you do is you can have different Docker compose files for different microservices. So you can essentially work on all your microservices and just spin up different environments with different commands. So it's
a Kubernetes competitor?
No, I think it's strictly for local development.
Oh, okay.
I believe it's a Microsoft product that's strictly for local development. But no, it may actually use Kubernetes as far as the orchestration is concerned, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, so I hope she talks a little bit more about that, but she's going to talk about microservices. So it should be really good. She's another Microsoft employee. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it's, like I said, I'm swinging for the fences, man. I was joking at first, and then I did it, and I was like, oh, man, now I got the itch. I don't want you local guys no more. I'm just joking. I'm joking. Please, local guys and girls, come on the stream. Make my life easier and volunteer, and don't make me call you. But yeah, no, as far as that, I mean, microservices are always fun. I'm open to talking about any topics y'all have tonight. I don't know. I know, Jeremy, you want to touch on work from home stuff? That's been.
I mean, you start the convo because I know you wanted to bring that one up. I mean, I've been in 2 different scenarios where it was work from home. To give you a little bit about my past, I actually ran a team for 5 years, completely distributed. We saw each other 4 times a year, and that was only because we were doing focus groups with users. So we had to be in the room together. And then, of course, COVID has forced us back into a work from home environment, which is the one that's going to bring up more topics, because now you start discussing how much the world of development has changed. And that does not matter what industry you work in right now, because of the fact that it directly affects your talent and how you can keep your talent and what you have to do to be competitive to make sure that all that knowledge just doesn't walk out the door.
Yeah. AKA everybody's leaving Louisiana, or they're not actually physically leaving Louisiana. They're getting West Coast salaries in Louisiana. So,
or East Coast.
Or East Coast. They're all there in Louisiana. So, but no, it's a real problem.
Or Texas.
Yeah. I mean, even look at Austin. I mean, it's ridiculous. Before I left Blue Cross and went to Turner, I interviewed at Headspring. That was one of the places I was looking at working. And I ended up going to Turner instead because Headspring was remote, but we would end up moving to Austin at some point. And I wish I would have done it then, because my house would be worth twice as much as what it would have been worth. But then property taxes probably would have killed me. So I don't know how that works in Texas, but I'm sure they're there. But yeah, no, I mean,
they're higher because you don't pay state.
It makes sense. So, but yeah, no, it's everywhere. And you're right. Trying to get that talent. Oh, we have a guest. Yeah, trying to get that talent and keep it here in Louisiana. It's getting more and more difficult. But I mean, there'll be other things too. I know currently we're remote, and I've worked at this company before where the people that we have to interact with are going back to the office. Like, that's who they are. That's what they want to do. And then it brings the whole hybrid situation up, because calling into a meeting room full of people is always a pain. I've seen it done successfully at Turner, but I've seen it done very poorly at Blue Cross. So I don't know if that is going to make a difference.
Well, that comes down to tech, right? Like, I know we have Cisco setups in every one of our meeting rooms right now, to where you can call into the room instead of having to call into the meeting, or the room will call into the meeting, and that way everything goes through the speaker. Mm-hmm. So it actually works really well. We're on a hybrid schedule now as well.
Oh, really?
But so it works. But the thing is, we've always been very collaborative. So, I mean, we have the team split up into pretty small portions right now. So it works pretty well for us. I've always rathered being offsite for very, very, very bad reasons for the rest of the company, is because I can ignore everyone else until I have free time to do it. But it also allows, I've felt like this when I was working at my previous position, that I did do hybrid. Now, there was no hybrid, where it was 100% remote. Is I always felt like the tooling that was there even back then was still allowed for much easier pair programming or code review instead of just sitting on top of somebody's shoulder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. And Ethan in the chat says that his dev career started, or their dev career started in COVID, and that's all they know is work from home or hybrid. And I mean, it's, you know, I'm with you, Jeremy. I worked for a fully remote team before Blue Cross, and the tech then, like Slack wasn't a thing then, but the tech then was still there. It was good enough to do it. It was a company. It was completely remote, no brick and mortar at all, based out of Chicago, and it worked. And now what we're seeing with Blue Cross, I mean, Teams, for whatever Teams is getting better. But me and some of my dev teammates, like, we literally sit in a meeting with each other all day long with our cameras on, and nobody's forcing us to do it. So, like, I know that's a thing, but that's not what we're doing. We sit in there because, you know, sometimes somebody does have a question, and it's easy just to unmute yourself and say, hey, I have a question. And you have every dev in there that can pay attention, or if they don't want to pay attention, they take their headphones off and you don't have to listen to me. So I'm
laughing because I don't think a single one of our devs have ever had their camera on since COVID started.
Yeah, no, I think our VP at the time mandated that you have to use your camera. I turn my camera, when I turn my camera off, it's because I don't want you to see my facial expressions, because I'm probably saying things that
face palming.
Yeah. Slamming my keyboard on the desk, or breaking. I've already went through four mice this month, so no, I'm just joking. But yeah, no, it's getting there. I mean, there's
we used, what was it, Skype for Business and TeamViewer when we needed it back then. I mean, it was you found a way to do it, but even back then it was so nice.
I mean, TeamViewer, we use that so much. And it worked. It worked well. So now it's easier because everything's just built in. So pretty much whatever you're using.
Yep.
Discord has it built in. Slack, I think, went and got it all built in now. And Teams has it all built in. So, I mean, we use Teams for everything. File sharing, whatever we need to do. So the tooling's there. It looks like now some of the companies that want to go back, I mean, there are people who like to be in person.
Yeah.
We've even talked about what could we do to get user groups back in person.
And that brings us back around to like what we were talking about before. I think, and I've had this discussion with a few people, I think as long as you can offer hybrid, you can stay competitive if the rest of your benefits package is competitive.
Yeah, definitely. Now, unfortunately, what's considered competitive is freaking blowing the roof off of the place.
Well, that's true. I mean, but this could be a person-to-person thing too, right? Like, so somebody's really going to want, that health and retirement and all that, and other people are going to want that in compensation. I mean, if you can find some company that has a full package, let everyone know.
Yeah.
But
no. My company lets me volunteer, so I get to spend, mornings at Terra High School, and they don't really say anything. So
yeah.
I mean, that's realistic. I mean, that's something that, even running the user groups, and I don't know if you've ever had to do this, Jeremy, but that's something I'm front and center with whenever I'm applying to a job. It's like, hey, I run this user group. So there's going to be some Wednesday nights when I'm not staying late. I'm sorry. Like, it is what it is. Or, there's even the whole, it's funny because my first stint at Blue Cross, there was the whole like, hey, I want to go and talk about the stuff we're doing here. And they're like, no. You can't do that. You can't talk about anything work related. Actually, don't even tell them where you work. I was like, okay, cool. So I leave and go to Turner. They're like, tell them where you work. We open source all of our stuff. Share the repos. Get some pull requests. And then I come back to Blue Cross, and this manager's like, no, tell them what we're doing. We're cloud. Get people to come work for us. Tell them we're awesome. Like, it's like, okay, getting a whole lot of mixed signals here.
I've never gotten in a situation where I was like, don't even worry about telling what you're doing or anything like that, because like every position I've ever been at was like, use it to get people excited. get them in the door. They always like that sales aspect of it. And even more so when we were doing a long time ago, there actually was a .NET group in New Orleans and a SharePoint group in New Orleans. And we had a ton of vendors that would come in. And that's one of the reasons why I think we ended up driving a lot of people away. It was just sales after sales meeting after sales meeting after sales meeting. But when I was working as a consultant, it was very beneficial to have those relationships in place for the companies I was working for. So they love that aspect of it as well. But yeah, that's a completely different discussion.
Yeah, I will say one thing. Since the job market's so hot, one thing that we have done as a user group is we've established some relationships with some recruiters, ones that we trust, that we have a personal relationship with. We also just if you have questions about jobs in the area, I don't think
speaking of that,
B John's on. It's I've gotten phone calls from people who either were part of the user group or they have a friend that's part of the user group, and they're like, "Hey, this company in Baton Rouge, what do you think of them?" Ask questions. We're here. On the flip side, if you're applying for something awesome, let me know, because I just want to know about that interview process, because I actually do communicate with people and work with people in the Baton Rouge area to help beef their resumes up or stuff. Like I actually showed Jeremy earlier. I've been going through this book like crazy because people are asking me about jobs. It's the Cracking the Coding interview. And people are asking me about, suggestions on jobs or resumes, and, give them feedback and be able to give them good feedback. And that's what we try to do. So if anybody's interested in that, just reach out to me and let me know. So, but go ahead. You said something? You're hiring?
No, I was thinking you brought up jobs. I think we do have an internship coming up, a spot available probably in spring. Which would be pretty nice for somebody. Or hopefully, unfortunately, I think by that point we're going to definitely want somebody that's going to be in the North Shore area.
So Southeastern students, just letting y'all know.
Yeah, pretty much.
Southeastern students. Oh, they're actually going to do their presentations, their senior presentations and stuff in person. I'm going to get to go this year for the first time in 2 years, so it's going to be great.
Yeah, we had that discussion with one of the old Southeastern students this week, and they were like, "Nope, I don't know anybody." And then my boss was like, "Oh man, that means I actually have to go to that thing."
You should go. We'll meet up. Okay. I don't usually go to the midterm.
It's virtual, isn't it?
They do have a virtual option.
Okay.
Yeah. Nichols grad. Well,
the fact that you have one at all.
We have
that Nichols actually, by the time, if he just graduated and he just started, Nichols probably lost their CS department long before he started. They still had it when I was there, but it was already fading at that point because I'm an IS major actually.
So when I was at Southeastern, I was kind of at the start of what started making Southeastern what they are now, if that makes sense. It was a conscious decision to lean more into projects and getting students job ready to compete in the job market. And Phillip Jackson, if anybody's familiar with him, God, so many Nichols grads.
He's not far off. They didn't close it not long after me and him graduated.
Yeah, no, that's so I've been involved in Southeastern's computer science program since I went there, and I've continued to go there because it was, like Jeremy said, it's a recruiting tool. I worked at a consulting company. We needed to get, people out of the school. Invoke for set up shop literally on their campus. There is an Invoke Technology Center on Southeastern's campus.
Yeah, and they teach some of their classes too, some of their guys.
They are project classes and everything.
But that goes back to what you were talking about earlier, is if you guys want to talk about stuff, come to me and Brian, because I didn't realize how tied in you were there. I'm actually on the advisory board at Nichols. So if you guys want to get any feedback to the professors, sounds like you guys have a way to get, whether it's Nichols or Southeastern. I'm directly tied in with those guys.
No. 100%. I sat on the advisory board at Southeastern for a couple of times, and then the professor that leads the project classes, Dr. Alcati, is a very good personal friend of mine. He actually lives down the road. I see him and did him all the time. We text each other regularly for holidays. So if you want to get into one of these two schools, I said, this is what we do as a community.
Yeah, he does. I just haven't been going to some of the stuff because it's been so InfoSec related lately. I should actually put someone respond to that. Let me put that up there. Yeah, they actually do reach out to me. I'm in communication. I'm on the email blast and stuff like that. But they've been, and when I say they, it's pretty much the guy that runs it is Dr. Evans or Mr. Evans. I can't remember if I got a doctorate or not. But he's kind of focused it on the people and industries that they have down there. And one of the big focuses right now is InfoSec. So everything has been InfoSec, and they haven't really been focusing on software. And I could probably do something software InfoSec related, but they have some way better people to talk about things like InfoSec. In fact, one of the guys that they had talked was actually through my recommendation, because he actually gave a talk to the Home Untitled Net user group, with Stephen Dye. He is the chief security officer at Edison Swiss Offshore. So when it comes to InfoSec, he knows his stuff. They basically don't do anything at Swiss tech related without getting a signature on a paper for him that outlines all the risk. And which is really nice, because it's one of the things that I wish I would have had in some companies. Because if, for example, an executive makes a decision that is against his recommendations, they have to sign off on that and saying, no, we're going to take responsibility for this. And there's a paper trail at that point, which Brian's like, I've never heard of that before, because no one does that. But he forced it, and it was actually it's had some pretty good outcomes for them when they did get hit by stuff where he was like, no, see, I told you, and you signed off on it.
Nice. God, don't let Blue Cross catch one of it. I'm joking. For all the, I don't think there's a few out there, but Jared's not going to tell on me. So, yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, connections into the communities, because especially now with like the talent leaving the state, you're gonna need it, because let's face it, there's like S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier devs coming out of some of these universities, and you're gonna try to, because we had that, it's the ones who are coming out that are the top of the line at this point, they have a job already, and that is 100% of the reason why Invoke went and set up shop on Southeastern campus.
Mm-hmm.
They're in with the, that's just what it's recruiting. I'm glad to see Blue Cross now is starting to lean more into interns, and we're getting the interns in and trying to get them to stay, to get those homegrown students. So
I still say that our last intern that we ended up turning into a full-time employee was probably somebody they would have poached if we wouldn't have got to him first as an intern. Without our internship program, Invoke would have probably poached him.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen it at Turner, and I don't know why Turner didn't continue to do it. Nice. I don't know why Turner didn't continue to do it. They got one of their best devs by offering them an internship from Southeastern, and then he stayed on. And
I could talk about that Invoke class in depth, because I've got multiple guys that work underneath me that have taken that class, and while it's good for some things, they glaze over some topics that probably shouldn't have just been glazed over, because I've had to retrain devs on some things because of that class.
Yeah. I mean,
but that's a bigger topic in education, in computer science education, because I've had this discussion with professors before as well.
Because an intern, professional, and then back to Invoke. Oh, nice. Yeah. No. Yeah, their classes are great. But like Jeremy said, we have an intern now that came from LSU, and we're a .NET shop. We do Azure. She comes in the door, and I was like, all right, let's create a web API. And her first question was, what is ASP.NET? Like, okay, we got a little ways to go here. Now she got up to speed, and she's killing it. At least as far as I'm concerned.
I'd rather somebody ask me that question instead of what's an interface.
Well, she knew what an interface was. So she did have some .NET experience. She's a game developer, so a lot of her experience is object oriented related. And
okay, yeah, and that's one of the things too. I've actually, when I said I had talked in depth with professors before, was more theory related stuff, because they get really good at let's do a project class, let's do a project class, let's do a project class, but there's a lot of theory that gets left behind when you actually just focus on project classes.
It is. And they started doing the project classes for one reason only. And it's just, hey, we can put you into the job market with some .NET experience versus somebody else. I mean, 100%, whenever I got my job at InfiniEdge, if anybody's familiar with that company, I got it over an LSU grad, and also got to pay a little bit of a bump because I actually did my senior project for High Power Consultants. It was even before they were Invoke. And I did my senior project with Robert Schroeder. So if you work at Invoke, you know who that is. We did our senior project together, and I came out of that class. We built a website for Southeastern that they literally used to schedule students to take supervised math classes. So not only did we built a legit, well, that was our 383 project. And then our 411 project, it was actually the one that we built for Calvin at High Power Consultants. That was like an internet monitoring service. So I came out of Southeastern with that knowledge, and I went and applied at a .NET shop. And they're like, oh, well, we assume we could take you and put you on the project day one, and you just start working on it. So I ended up getting a job over the LSU grad. Funny story, the LSU grad ended up getting an offer 6 months later, and now he works at Google. So
nice.
Joke's on them.
I think Nichols did a similar thing, right? But they kind of added another little thing on top of it, is they'll let like the local nonprofits apply for projects, and the senior project was always one of those. So you went through the entire process, you met with them, you gathered requirements, you would do all that stuff. So it was, being an IS program, you kind of focused a little bit more on the business. So you went through all of it. You met with requirements, you did all that stuff, and then you developed it, and you were supposed to have something at the end of your senior project you could actually hand off to this local nonprofit. And Ethan's saying, yes, they still do VB.NET. And I've actually made that argument on the board to move it to C#, strictly because of the fact that the syntax is easier to move between on every popular language right now than VB.NET. But that's a battle I'm not fighting anymore. But yeah, I mean, it was actually pretty good to have some project stuff. But like I said, looking back and coming out of the industry, had it not been for people that have gone through Invoke, and I think he's working with you now, like Rigsby and Jackson and Dalbort, when getting on a project with those, I was 2 or 3 years into my career before you really start understanding, dependency injection, interfaces, things like that, because it's theory that's lost, but it's theory that once you understand it, changes the way you do development.
Yeah, no, those are names that I recognize 100%. For those of you who are not familiar, Phillip Jackson is a Southeastern grad. He actually used to be a user group leader here, Baton Rouge.NET user group leader, and then he went off to bigger and better things. He's oh Lord, dog's getting.
He's at Microsoft. He's managing at Microsoft.
He's some kind of big PM at Microsoft now. And Rigsby does work as a manager. Rigsby was a developer at Invoke, and with like Jeremy Beckham and some of the other names, throwback names. But I think Rigsby actually came from ULL. He had
Rigsby doesn't have
he has a music major,
science degree at all. No, he's a music major. But see, that was at the time we were all at Antares. Like the talent pool Antares had was insane at one point in time, because it was like all of those were on their own roof in Baton Rouge, because it was Phillip Jackson, John Dalberg, which I think he's working for like TrueCar. He might still be working for TrueCar, and Rigsby. Rigsby was him, and Rigsby and Jackson were the two that started the Lunch and Learns. That kind of led to me getting into this, because it was kind of a pay it forward thing.
Yeah, and Jackson's the one who went in and really partnered with Dr. Alcati and said, these are the type of project classes that we're going to do, and just to get students real world experience. So, like you said, they'll teach the object oriented theory classes, the algorithms classes and things like that at Southeastern, as far as the computer science thing is concerned. But if you let Dr. Alcati get his hands on it, it's a project class. You're going to have a business user. You're going to have something that you need to present, and if all goes well, hopefully I get to go and watch you present it. So I've been lazy the last couple of years, but but hey, that's you got to get in there now because that's the only way you're going to keep talent in Louisiana at this point.
Oh yeah, and you're right too. It's like you hate to say it, but there's always a tier list, and anybody that's ever walked onto a job site knows it. There's always a rock star dev, and there's always a rock star dev compared to you as well. So that's one of the things that I love about development. It'll knock you down real quick if you think you're like, God's gift to coding. The interesting part about it is we need to make sure that those S and A tier guys stay, because to have them just keep leaving, and unfortunately that means they stop getting involved in things like this. So that knowledge share kind of leaves as well, right? There's a lot of mentoring that goes on behind closed doors that we never see through the user groups, that we don't want those guys leaving either, because for every person that you go and teach somebody, and I've seen it on the teams I've worked with, you show one guy how to do something. The other day I'm working with one guy, and it kind of leads to one of the other things that you were talking about. What tooling? I will never leave Visual Studio. I like Visual Studio Code for what it is, but Visual Studio is too powerful. And every time I sit down with somebody, they understand a little bit more why. It's because once you get into the breadth of tools that it has for you to make your development life a little easier, you'll never leave it. You have to add 100 to 200 extensions to Visual Studio Code to get it to do everything that Visual Studio can do. And at that point, it's just as slow as Visual Studio.
That's fair, but the Vim support for VS Code is so much better than Visual Studio that I don't care. I don't care what else. It has IntelliSense and fantastic Vim support.
So we were doing some debugging. I forgot what it was the other day, and I was just put a trace point. He's like, what's that? And I was like, here, right click on that breakpoint. And he's like, wait, you can do that? I'm like, yes.
I forgot all about that. You could say, you could actually put logic in your breakpoint to where it only breaks on a specific ID. When you're trying to debug thousands of IDs instead of writing console.log if ID.
Exactly. And I think it was something like that where I was like, look, we knew what ID it was, just search for that one, have it break when it's that one, and then now we can go and walk through it step by step. He was like, you just saved me like hours of, yes, I did. But that's why I love Visual Studio.
And for the record, whenever I first started at Blue Cross, I was at then it didn't really have a term for it, but now they do. I was a front end developer. All I wrote was Angular, and at that time, and that's Angular like 1.3, 4, and 5, because I was so excited when Angular 1.5 came out because it actually introduced components, and I was like, I can build components in Angular now. The world's great, and then they hosed that transition to Angular 2, and I ended up moving to Angular 2 anyway, and then React later. And now I have to do Blazor stuff because Jared makes me. But I was a UI developer, and Visual Studio for writing JavaScript at that time was about the worst thing. So I would use Atom or whatever else I could find, and then VS Code came out, and I was like, oh, this is a lifesaver.
So, I use VS Code for all Ionic stuff, Ionic Angular stuff. I'm in VS Code because you're right, it still doesn't have some of the JavaScript stuff that you would really like to have. I mean, I use it for when I'm in Blazor 100% of the time. I never even open VS Code, but
now I write mostly services and .NET framework, so I have to use Visual Studio, which it's like you said, it's a fantastic tool. I've been using 2022 preview, and it's been
less than a month. I just read that while you were talking to her. The GA's like the 8th of November.
No, we had to do some Maui stuff for one of our apps, and I had to install 2022 to do all of that, and it was pretty rock solid. I mean, I think we ended up getting Code Rush recently, so that was part of the tooling talk. I'm a ReSharper fan.
What does it still have?
So ReSharper has one feature that is a lifesaver. So if you don't know me, I am a TDD diehard. I do TDD like you can't convince me to stop, and I don't do it for all the reasons that the industry says you do it. I do it because that's just like I love living in unit tests, and that's what I do. So what I end up doing is I literally do failure test. Okay, well I need a class now in order to satisfy this. Well, I just new class, and it puts it down at the bottom of that class file. I need my interface put at the bottom of that class file, so I fill all that out. When I'm done, I go to that class with ReSharper, or at least I used to, and I'm going to start crying in a second because I can't do it anymore, and hit Control-Shift-R, and you can move that class to an entirely different project, an entirely different folder, and it will fix all of your namespaces and everything for you. Every other tool I found, you say, move this to another class, it puts the class right next to the unit test class that I'm writing, and then I have to drag it. Well, the reason I use Vim is because I don't ever want to touch my mouse, period. And if I touch my mouse, I have ADD. I'm going to touch my mouse. I'm going to flip a tab. I'm going to check Twitter. I'm going to go get some water. Then I'm going to come back and drag the class. And then I'm going to have to touch the mouse again to go back to the other class. I'm going to go get some water and come back. But like, that's what ReSharper did for me. And that's the one feature that I wanted. The rest of it, I don't really care about. The test runner was nice, but Visual Studio's test runner has come a long way. You don't really need that anymore. I've been using ReSharper for like 7 years. So whenever you do like a for each loop or anything like that, where you kind of stub out the code, the order that ReSharper goes in is different than the order that Visual Studio goes in. And for me, I feel like it goes in a better order, and I'm used to that order. So it'll actually do, like if you do a for each, it'll actually do like your collection, or a for loop. It'll do your collection before it'll do your variable. But in Visual Studio, it does your variable, then it does your collection. But if you ReSharper, doesn't that do that anymore? I don't remember. It's been a while. But just things like that. Like there's code snippets that ReSharper supported that I just got used to. So that's why I would keep them, because now going into Visual Studio, it's just that muscle memory is gone, and it drives me crazy. And I can't move class files to another project without a mouse. And
that's like the only thing. Because I mean, like, I kind of feel like Writer is a thing because Microsoft kept stealing shit from ReSharper. Like, I had this conversation with one of my friends who started a new job this week, and then he was like, "What do you use nowadays inside of Visual Studio?" And he's reinstalling everything, and I'm like, "Nothing. Visual Studio, Control period." That's
it goes a long way.
Yeah,
and then you can even you can change, for those you don't know, you can change the Visual Studio bindings to actually be similar to VS Code. So that's why I started using Vim, because at one time I did a lot of Linux programming or Unix programming. So I was in a terminal all the time. And then I have a Mac that I use for my personal development. And then I have a Windows machine at work. And all the keyboards, because I don't like to touch the mouse. So all the keyboard shortcuts were different on every machine. But if I put a Vim plugin in it, they're all the same. So I just use Vim from then on out. And just it gets me like 80% of the keyboard shortcuts that I need are just there, like circling and jumping the lines. So,
and now we're all back in terminal again.
Yeah, no, I'm comfortable there. I'm okay with that. So,
I thought I was done with terminal back in 98 when Windows 98 when we first got our first Windows computer.
So, but yeah, no, it's interesting to see how it's going. Like I said, I'm doing a lot of Azure stuff nowadays. So I really just use VS Code for a lot of the connecting to Azure, and like I said, dealing with Docker containers and stuff like that. A lot of that's really easy to do with VS Code. And then
what are you using for Docker? Do you have any UI on your
VS Code has a plugin.
Yeah. Okay.
That's because the whole Docker desktop fiasco. So, I think I still have it on my work machine. I need to install it.
No, I'm actually asking for a bunch of reasons, but I have a personal server that I'm running Docker on right now with no UI, so I'm constantly SSHing in.
Oh, okay. You should be able to connect to remote Docker containers with VS Code. But yeah, no, other than that, you'd have to SSH in and run all your commands. I don't have any document management tool for a server like that. No, I think I feel like the Docker for desktop will do it if you pay for it.
No,
that's
sure. Quite all right.
Yeah, pretty doesn't pay for it. And I'm pretty sure that VS Code will let you connect to remote containers. I don't know if anybody's out there who could tell me I'm wrong. Feel free to, but I feel like that's a thing, but I could be wrong.
Synology started throwing errors on Plex, and I was like, you know what? Screw it. I actually think those two companies are at odds right now, or at least Plex really doesn't like the fact that they made all kind of changes for the new OS, because DSM-7 came out earlier this year, and it's been having problems with Plex. So I'm actually running Plex and a new one called Jellyfin side by side just to see which one I like better.
Yeah, I saw you talking about that. I actually, my Plex server is sitting on an old Debian Unix box right next to me. But the other morning, I got woken up to the server screaming because I'm fairly certain the hard drive's failing. I mean, it's old and I never turn it off. So I'm scared to turn it back on because I'm going to have to migrate all those photos and images and all that stuff to something else.
So I still have the Synology running my media, which is nice. So I have that running on the Parity, but I have it's an old 60. It's my 6700K I had in my gaming machine before this running on Ubuntu server. So
nice.
Everything's running through Docker. So
yeah, it's too easy to lift and shift.
Yep.
Put that junk in Docker and then throw it out there. I know because every arrogant developer thinks they can write their own blog engine and does. So I did because I'm that developer, and actually it worked out because I needed content to write about for the blog. So I built it, and I built it with Razor Pages, a web API, and I was like, where am I going to host this junk at? Because I'm not paying for app services to run this in Azure, so I'm not paying that kind of money. Well, DigitalOcean's like, hey, we have Docker images. So I actually built out the entire infrastructure where I had an Nginx container that had all my port forwarding, or my proxying, my HTTP proxying done. So I had all that. And it's just like a simple Docker Compose file. And I had all the containers built. I actually built an Azure DevOps because it was free at the time. So I built an Azure DevOps build release pipeline to build all my containers, ship them off to the registry, and then actually log SSH into my server and restart the darn thing, and deploy. It was fantastic because I was like, if I could do this, I could deploy this junk anywhere.
Doesn't it annoy you that now you can do it all for free on Azure?
Yeah, well, I moved to WordPress about 6 months ago. I never wrote any blog entries, so it didn't really matter.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to get off of WordPress. I'm probably gonna do like an 11T. That's a converter where you could export all your XML and push it through a converter, and I'll just convert it for you. Just because don't want to pay them anymore because of the custom domain. But I actually started playing the thing I was streaming, that little tip calculator I was using as a stream because I know I talked about it on my first stream. Everybody knows the business logic behind a tip calculator, so I kind of use that as a way to stream some Blazor and get people into Blazor WASM a little bit. I actually converted it this weekend or like middle of last week or something like that to run on Azure static web pages, and it was super simple. And it actually fixed one of the issues I was having because GitHub Pages is not really made for that, so they don't have some of the right header settings within whatever they run as their HTTP server.
Okay. Interesting. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I need to start doing. I had some stuff I was working on. Do the whole stream thing, promote content. I mean, we have a decent amount of stuff out there on this channel, but keep driving that stuff to try to build the base. I'm actually surprised that there's still 11 people with us, and I'm not 6 of them because usually I inflate the numbers. So, yeah, no.
I know you had a few other things that you want to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's getting late. I don't know if you're hanging around, but we could share some of the stuff for later. Like I said, talk about the user group, talk about how things were going. I think we've seen, like I mentioned earlier, it's like I feel like half of the people that were in Baton Rouge stopped showing, and then we've kind of replaced those numbers with people elsewhere. Obviously, we got some Nichols people in here, which I don't know if a Nichols person ever came to a Baton Rouge user group before, meeting before this, whether they were in Baton Rouge or not. So I do have friends that watch from out of state from time to time. It's nice. Obviously, whenever the big speakers come in, they bring a little bit of an audience. So it's been really fun. I think we're going to continue this. I did talk to Kenny a little bit today about how we could do a hybrid model and keep this stream going, but then have an in-person presence too. So that may be something.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Because we're going to run off of there. So to answer that question, I'm going to bring that up. The homotypical.net Discord went away. We're probably going to keep the Facebook groups because those have been separate a little bit unless we decide to do something a lot more formal as a outside of Baton Rouge user group. We have kind of had a little bit of discussion on that, but there's so much branding around the BR stuff right now that it makes it kind of hard. But we're going to try and run as much as we can going forward off the same stack and Discord allows us to do that relatively simple with just another category. So it was one of those things where we just merged that one in.
Yeah. No, that was one thing. The branding thing is the big deal. I mean, at first, I'll be honest with you, and if anybody from the Baton Rouge group sees this, whatever, I figured all that was going to die off. Whenever we started this, I 100%, and I still kind of lean that way, is it rebrand us to something a little bit more regional to include both groups. So that's something that we've talked about and something that we'd really like to do.
Well, look, you got New Orleans, North Shore. Does Lafayette have a group anymore?
Lafayette just has their software development group. It's not .NET specific.
I don't think Shreveport does one either anymore. So, I mean, you could theoretically bring in people from all over the state and potentially outside. So,
yeah, and I'd be 100% on that. It just so happened by the time we brought Jeremy in, we already had the Baton Rouge user group branding. And that's, if it wasn't for changing that, I mean, I'm not opposed to it. It's just a pain in the butt.
Yeah, so I mean, because the big stop is gone, right? I mean, do we know what's going on with the SQL Saturday organization? Because I know that was one of the big reasons why we couldn't do. I mean, and then this was a decade ago. We had this conversation. We couldn't do a Louisiana Tech Day, so or Louisiana Tech Fest. So like Houston has Houston Tech Fest. We were looking at that as a model at one point in time, and then when we went down that avenue, it was like PASS was going to pull so much funding that it was just not something we could handle.
No, and kind of there has been talks, and we actually met with some of the people who have, because like, I mean, I'm a card carrying member. I can spend SQL Saturday money. So I talked to other people who also have cards. So there's only a few of us left in Baton Rouge that have access to all of the SQL Saturday BR stuff. But like I said, we talked. It was right before this whole Delta variant thing happened. And for those of you who don't know, like, it's a legitimate organization. We have insurance. We have a board. We pay taxes. It's not, something that we're not just, a group of people who put it together. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't know that until I got involved in this and how much drama is actually associated with it.
They had to because of insurance purposes.
Yeah. So it all comes down to insurance purposes. And so that's the first thing. The second thing is that we always did our events at LSU. LSU is a state-run college. They let us do it for free, so we didn't have to pay. That's a huge expense, not have to worry about. All we needed was the insurance. So they're going to have rules around COVID. It always comes down to insurance. Yeah, I work at an insurance company. Believe me, for that. But we always did it at LSU. LSU is a state-run organization or whatever you want to call them. So they're going to have rules, especially around COVID. And it may include mask mandates. It may include whatever. And we just kind of collectively figured as a group, like, we're going to wait for this to die down. We were talking about like March or something like that. The whole Delta thing hit. That put a wrinkle in all the plans. So we're just like, you know what? We're not going to worry about it right now because finding a venue and all the other stuff is going to be dramatic. I mean, even whenever we did at LSU, we emailed LSU and said, hey, we're ready to plan our conference again. They're like, here's 2 weekends you can choose from throughout the year. So we would try to pick the lesser of the two evils because they didn't give you the most attractive weekends. You can't obviously do it during LSU football season. So some of the people who've come over the past couple of years, we did it on LSU move-in day. So you had to deal with people moving into the dorms and stuff. It wasn't really something we had a lot of control over. It's just the way it worked out with the options they gave us.
And PASS is no longer involved. So, I mean,
PASS is no longer involved. So
it'd be 100% what?
It was going to be Tech Day.
Okay.
That's what we're throwing around. And so we threw that around. The next thing we threw around is possibly, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Activate Conf or Activate. I don't know. Lindsay moved to Texas. I don't know if they're still a thing or not, but they would do a tech night at LSU. Same thing, need insurance, whatever. But they would do it during the week, almost like a user group meeting. And they would make a little bit bigger deal out of it than what a user group meeting would be. And they had people from IBM and other places come and talk. So we discussed doing that and basically having one tech track, like just as an intro, like let's get our feet wet and figure something out, where each group would essentially have a speaker that would represent their group, and we would just have a tech night. And we thought about doing that quarterly, just to kind of bring in-person meetings. So that way, because one thing that I was pushing back on is that the other parts of the Baton Rouge user group. So there's the SQL Server side, and there's the Power and BI, Power Analytical side. So we're all under that Baton Rouge user group umbrella. We're the .NET side. And they are dying to go back in person. And I told them, I was like, there's almost no shot I'm going back fully in person. Like, this is not going to happen. I said, the success or the fun that we've been having with the streams, and the fact that like Jeremy is a big part of this, the Homa Thibodeau user group is a big part of this. Like, I'm not bailing on y'all. I was like, this is going too well. I mean, we're just rambling. We got 10 people. The last SQL Server user group had two. It was the speaker and a person who set up who set up their in-person meeting. We did get, I think when I first took over the Baton Rouge user group, we averaged 6 to 7 people showing up. By the time I was done, we were closer to 35. And then
see, that's impressive. And that's when it gets kind of fun. When you're pulling in 6 people a night and it's your team, the two people leading the group, it's not fun. I mean, and that's how New Orleans kind of died out. It was me, and the last time I was working in the New Orleans user group, it was me and one of the dev, and we were working at separate companies, and it was our 2 teams that would show up, and then that was it.
Yeah.
So it was like, why are we doing this? We can go meet at a bar somewhere and talk about this stuff. It was like,
yeah. And one of the ways that we built that was basically this, like the 12 people who are here that have been here the whole time, who probably show up to every one of these. It's what we're trying to do now, is like establish some sort of personal relationship, chat, and get involved, and not just have some random speaker up here talking to you. But once we've figured that out, the Baton Rouge user group, so we can establish these personal relationships and get these people, they're coming back not for the content, but just to hang out and get some free food. And then they listen to the content. But then that made it easier for me to show sponsors. And I mean, that year we had, the year of COVID, I had the entire year booked with speakers, and I had a sponsor for every month. So,
see,
yeah, we drink coffee.
I just that's probably half of the reason why someone didn't want to go back, is in person, have free food.
Yeah.
We never had that. We had already lost that in Homa. Like, because the second Microsoft pulled our funding, and I think you are already in charge of the user group, or were you?
Not yet, no.
Because Microsoft pulled our funding at one point in time. We used to get about $100 a month from Microsoft to run the user group, and they cut it. And I don't know if you remember Zane from Microsoft. He was huge in the group down here in New Orleans and all this stuff. He was the rep that we had from them. I don't know what happened at Microsoft when that shift happened. I think it was before Nadella. It was definitely before Nadella. But they just said, no, we're going to cut it all. And at that point, we had stopped getting free food. We had asked one of the place Jarrett was working at one point in time was where we were meeting, because they had a big enough conference room. And then we got 2 or 3 meetings where it was like one person had to pull in a chair. So I had to start looking around for another one. And we ended up finding one of the kind of networking services, software service, kind of, go to your shop and fix you up with 365 kind of organizations that we had in Homa. They had just built a new building, and they had a great little setup that we could use, and he was completely 100% supportive. And we ended up just hosting there because they allowed us to. And the library had actually ended up kicking us out.
That's funny,
because we didn't have any of the setup that you guys had, right? So, and at one point I did talk to William, and he would have put us underneath y'all umbrella if we needed to get at Nichols. Because while I was looking around for another spot after Jared's company's conference room filled up for us, one of the places I went to was the professors at Nichols, because like I said, I was at that point already on the advisory board, and I was like, well, can we host here? And they were like, you don't have insurance.
Yeah. Yep. No, we were fortunate. We had the tech park. We also had the insurance. We have, all the stuff. We were fortunate, or we are fortunate, because SQL Saturday has a checking account. So we were able to, that's how we ended up doing the food if we didn't get sponsors. So I actually, once the group started building it, it's funny because, everybody who gets spam email from recruiters, especially, I hope none of them are, especially the ones that are local to Baton Rouge, they say, hey, are you interested in a job? And I'd say no, but I host a .NET user group and we have developers looking for jobs. So if you come and buy us food, you can come and try to pitch to our developers. And that's how we end up getting most of them sponsored. And then other companies started noticing that and just like, oh, we need developers. So we'll come and sponsor and we can post the positions that we're hiring or something like that. So I'm all about cold calls. So, I would send emails to, at the time I was using, I've sent emails to Docker to see if they want to just send swag or anything like that to hand out meetings. I've sent to DigitalOcean, and at the time it was funny because they weren't doing sponsorships for user group meetings. And then eventually they came back and said, hey, we can sponsor a user group meeting. But then, crap went down. So I was like, whatever. Never
we
mind.
throw Docker around enough. They should send us some free swag.
Yeah. But yeah, I would just email, different companies, and every once in a while we get something, but it wasn't too often. I
ran into swag issues a few times too with companies, like without having some of the organization that you guys in Baton Rouge had, the backing organization. When I would go to apply for Telerik, for example, turned us down because we didn't have any of that, so they wouldn't sponsor. Mm-hmm. I was showing Telerik stuff at meetings, and Telerik was
funny. I actually, I do a Blazor component talk, or I did one. It's on our YouTube channel. Go watch it. No, but whenever I was getting ready to do that, I was actually. So I had aspirations to be like a dev advocate. So I was starting to apply to like VS Live and stuff like that. So I was whenever you do their talks, they're like an hour and a half. So you need more content. So I actually reached out to Telerik and I was like, hey, I'm doing a Blazor component talk. I'm applying to these conferences. If you give me free stuff, I will put your stuff in my talk. So they set me up with like a license and everything. I still have it. I just never used it. Yeah. But then I also worked at Turner at the time. So they're like, oh, you work at Turner. I don't remember how they figured it out. They're like, you work at Turner. Do y'all still need, do y'all need to re-up y'all's license? I was like, I don't know. I'll find somebody for you to talk to. But
no, we already paid you for the year. Yeah. We still use them. We actually use their Angular stuff and their Blazor stuff at this point.
Nice.
We actually are implementing their charting tools right now in our Angular app, because we tried using Google Charts and it was a pain. And I think our company likes having, especially at enterprise level, right? You really like to be able to like pick up the phone and call somebody when something breaks or something's not working. And with Charts, they found they couldn't do that. He was spinning his wheels way too much. We had a few developers just spinning their wheels way too much trying to do simple stuff. Strip lines that you can do in SSRS. I know that's what they're called in SSRS.
Yeah.
He was having to manually draw those on a chart in JavaScript, and it's like, no.
Nice. All right. Well, I think people are starting to bail. I think I'm gonna have to bail here in a second. So
yep.
This was fun. Thanks everybody for hanging out. We may do this again. This wasn't as bad as I was expecting. We were supposed to have more people on, but things happen. So
yeah, he got a big old long list of topics that we could hit too. Y'all send them in too. I linked it while he was talking about it, but the Discord is really one of those things where we can start building and y'all can start talking to us. Look, me and Brian are approachable. We're not gonna be like, go away.
No. I would, if anything, I would say, hey, you want to come on stream?
Stop saying that, because no one's ever going to talk to you.
Look, whenever I was trying to build the Baton Rouge user group, it was, hi, my name is Brian. I run a Baton Rouge user group. Will you come and speak at it? And they're like, look, this is McDonald's. You're trying to order food. I'm like, I know, but I gotta get out there in front of everybody.
Look, man, you got to remember, not everybody has gone through the ringer like me and you to get to this point. We were all introverts at one point in time. We don't want to get in front of people.
Oh, the best part is in school, I know I said we're leaving, but this always happens. And me and Jeremy's going to probably stay on the call for another 30 minutes after this. But I would be in school and I would not, even at Southeastern, I would not say a word to any of my classmates. I wouldn't talk to them. I wouldn't hang out with them after class. But as soon as it was my turn to present a project, it was the best day of my life. I couldn't wait to get up there and in front of all these people who I've never talked to before, even though we've been going to school together for 4 years, and just talk about something. And not necessarily that I built something. It was more so like, I want you to ask me questions and just, I don't know.
And see, that was interesting because I don't know if y'all had to, but when I was in college, we had to take a speech class.
Mm-hmm.
That was the exact opposite.
I don't know.
When I had to get up and present for my tech classes, it was completely, it felt completely different than getting up and presenting for a topic that was handed to me. I had to go and talk about something that was not my area of expertise at all.
That was my favorite class. We did an improv section. That was the best thing ever. I enjoyed it. Me and William were supposed to take an improv class, but COVID.
Oh, I can definitely see William doing that.
William's, because I want to be as funny and entertaining as him whenever I do presentations. I need to have him come and just do a presentation for us. He does one about submitting to Microsoft Docs. It would probably work well for everybody, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. I'm really going to end it this time. I'm going to put a banner up to make it official. So thanks everybody for hanging out. Any last words, Jeremy?
No, like I said though, just if you have any questions, the Discord's there for a reason. If you somehow don't have a Discord in today's day and age and you're in this field, we have Twitter. We do have a Facebook that neither one of us are actually in control of.
Not at all.
So, I mean, just reach out if y'all have questions. If y'all just want to talk about the side projects, we got some guys on Discord talking about their setups at home for, me. I've mentioned earlier, I haven't really talked about it on Discord yet, but I have used some of the things that they've mentioned on Discord on how to set up my Docker containers for my home host yourself, the self-hosting setup that I have for a few things. So, I mean, you definitely got things outside of just .NET and SQL and the Microsoft-related stuff that it's just a little tech-related spot that you guys can come and hang out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We'll do something about the BR branding at some point. But then we lost everybody when we went from YouTube to here. It's all about money, insurance, and viewer base. That's it. Anyway. All right. Well, thanks, everybody, for hanging out. I'm going to pull me and Jeremy off just so that we have a decent-looking closing screen, and we'll talk to y'all later.